Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and today we are talking about the top 10 value for your money games. Now, obviously this is going to be my own list, my own opinion. I'm sure there's many other games out there that I haven't taken into account, but these are the games I would pick if I were picking 10 games that deliver an amazing value for what you're paying. And I took into account a few things when I made this list, and I took into account the list as a whole. So not just any one game, but rather I wanted to deliver a comprehensive experience. I wanted to pick games that, if you were picking 10 games at a decent price point to start off a collection, you have a variety of different things going on here. You have solo games, you have co-op, you have two-player, you have heavy strategy, different game lengths, different mechanics. You have drafting, deck building, worker placement, tableau building. There are different mechanics going on here and a vast variety of different play styles, player counts, and whatnot to deliver a comprehensive set of 10 games, really 11, we'll come back to that, that would hopefully be a good starting point to a collection. Now this is not a list of 10 games that are essential to start a collection. I would pick a different list if I weren't taking into account the monetary aspect, but I am taking into account the monetary aspect. I'm looking at which games deliver a good bang for your buck, but comprehensively not on their own. And because of that, that means I'm not just looking at a million variations of some small game that the Mind, Coloretto, Timeline. There are so many good, cheap games that will deliver a good value, and some of them are on this list. But some of them I'll have to fight to sway you as to why I picked the way I did. And that's why, by the way, that's why there are 11 games and not 10. Because while I will fight for each of these games, one of them I think I would lose that fight. One of them I picked to round out a bunch of different things. And we'll come to that. But there's another which I'll have to definitely fight you on, but we'll come back to that too. And let's start off not with Circle the Wagons, but rather with Sprawlopolis. Sprawlopolis is a game I've talked about before. I've talked about it in my top 10 solo games video. I've talked about it in games I added to my collection, but I think I really talked about Circle the Wagons there. But anyways, Sprawlopolis is a solo game. Yes, it can be played two-player, but it thrives as a solo game. This is a game where you'll be taking these cards, you'll be taking the cards in the game and laying them over each other in different pattern buildings so that you can ideally score different objectives. You're going to start the game by drawing 3 cards that will define your objectives for the round, and then from there you're going to build out your map, build out your city, 1 card at a time, trying to meet those objectives and score the most points and hopefully win. It is a game that will cost you 10, 15, maybe 20 bucks depending on where or how or what you get, but it will deliver an amazing experience. It's only 18 cards or maybe a little more. There's a bunch of expansions. That's why the price will vary depending on the expansions you get. But it's a great game by Button Shy Games that it's great. It's portable. It delivers a cooperative experience, although I really think the solo is where it thrives. I'm adding kind of into that Circle the Wagons, which is more of a 2-player experience. And again, very similar gameplay, very similar style going on, but a different experience. Both of them are great, but I'm specifically picking Sprawlopolis because, like I said, I'm trying to do a bunch of things here, and I wanted to get the solo experience in for this list. I have a bunch of 2-player stuff already. Number 2 on this list, we have Ganz, Schon, Clever. Ganz, Schon, Clever is a fairly reasonably priced game. You can get it for, and by the way, many of these games I should note, I took into account the used game market when I factored in the price. A bunch of these games are very cheaply available on the used game market, whether on BoardGameGeek, on eBay, on whatever Facebook group, on BoardGameCo. Yes, I'm going to, shill my website over here. But in any case, Ganz, Schon, Clever is a game that is fairly cheaply available, and I think it's a great fit because, first of all, it gives us that roll and write. If you're looking for a roll and write in your collection, it gives it that. But also, this game kind of straddles the line of being accessible and easy and whatnot, but also slightly longer and complex and cascading benefits and a lot of different things you have to take into account. It is fun to fill this out as an entry point level into gaming, but it's also fun to play this game once you know more about games, once you know more about strategy, and once you know more about how to make different things fit together so that you win the game. And this game does that for you. In the game, you're going to be rolling these dice, you're going to be rolling the dice each round, and you're going to pick from the dice you roll to try to accomplish one of your different areas on your board. And then whichever dice were left over that were higher or lower, I can't recall, than the one you just rolled, those ones are put off to the side and are no longer available. And then you roll again, and then you do it again until you have 3 dice. And then your opponents pick from the remaining dice, they pick 1 of them each to try to fill out their own boards. And you go round and round through 3, 4, 5 rounds, depending on the player count, until you hopefully win the game. But the fun of this game doesn't come in the first 3 rounds. The first 3 rounds of this game, you're sitting there thinking, how am I going to ever get done all the things I want to get done? But as the game progresses, as it develops, and as you hit that 4th round, maybe the 5th round, you start to hit these cascading trees of bonuses that one area of your board unlocks a different thing on one other area, and then that unlocks something else, and you start having these turns where you do 5-6 boxes being filled out in a round, and it is deeply rewarding to play this game. There's another game, Doppelt so clever, or Twice as Clever, which is a sequel. I like Ganz, Schon Clever better. The game's called That's Pretty Clever. Ganz, Schon Clever, I like it better than the sequel, but I do like the sequel as well. So if you ever do get this, and if you ever do get bored, check out Twice as Clever as well. And that is our roll and write. Next up, we have our deck builder, or I should say one of our deck builders, which is going to be Dale of Merchants. Dale of Merchants is an engaging game. This also, one of the criteria I picked here when trying to pick out good games are games that are good at different strategy levels, that you can play it with people who are interested in lighter experiences, you can play it with people who are interested in heavier experiences. I felt that's a good criteria for when you're trying to pick a game that gets good value for your money. The smaller the play group that can play a game, the more limiting and therefore the less play you'll get out of a game. And so that was definitely a factor in my decisions here. But the Dale of Merchants. Dale of Merchants is a deck builder that is supremely engaging. I need to get the big box because these don't fit well in here, but it's a deck builder where you're building out your stalls and you have these different animal decks, and every game you pick different animal decks to be in the game, which leads to vastly different experiences because each animal deck has their own spin of how they do things. Does this deck steal cards from your opponent? Does this deck rely on lots of luck? Does this deck rely on pulling cards in the discard pile? Each deck brings its own unique experience and flavor to the game. And you pick a few of these, you combine them, and that is your deck for the game. That's what you're going to play with. And then you start buying these cards and using the cards to buy more cards and using the cards to buy market stalls. And one at a time, and of course the abilities. Each card has its own ability that you can utilize as well. And slowly but surely you escalate your path upwards until you have built all the market stalls required to win the game. It is light, it's engaging, it plays in a fairly short time, 25 minutes, half an hour, somewhere in that range. It plays well with 2, 3, and 4 players, and it plays well at a variety of player, what's it called, depth, of weight, of how strategic each player is. And that is another game on this list. From there we have The Crew. The Crew is the newest game to me on this list. From all these games, The Crew is the newest one in my collection, but I think it's a great choice. It's simultaneously cooperative, it is quick, accessible, light, it is trick-taking, a genre that I don't like at all, but I like it in The Crew. It also has silent communication, which is another, I don't even know what it's called as a mechanic, but the idea of communicating with each other and trying to work together as a team, but without being able to actually say everything you want. The Crew has that as well. In this game, you're collecting tricks in the game, but there's a twist because you have to you get these requirements at the beginning of each round. There's different levels that you can go through, but the requirements define what has to be done that round. Maybe this player has to win the trick with the lowest card. Maybe this player has to win the trick with the 7, with the green 7. Each round you pick out different requirements of how you're going to define what the objectives are, and then collectively you have to decide as a team how are you going to make sure that happens, which is fun. I hate trick-taking. I really do. I've never liked a trick-taking game until this one, and I don't know why that is. I think I just don't appreciate the strategy behind trick-taking. I never have, and so it just feels like luck to me, even though I know it's not. But in this game, it doesn't feel like luck, because in this game, we are working as a team. We are working as a crew to try to figure out together which cards need to be played, which cards need to be eliminated in order so that we as a group can win the trick, or we as a group can make sure someone else wins the trick. Or maybe this round we have to make sure that nobody wins a trick above whatever. We have to figure out the rules, and they will change each round. And they'll get progressively harder because you'll have cascading numbers of objectives you have to deal with. But it's fun, and you're working as a team, and you'll go through each level one at a time and slowly try to check it off your list until hopefully you do. But I like The Crew, and it's reasonably priced, and it's available now. It was out of print for a bit, but it's available again. And I think it's a great game to add to your collection. From there we have One Night Ultimate Daybreak, which is our first party game on this list. Now this one is actually, I believe this is is this the expansion? Yeah, this is the expansion. It's One Night Ultimate Werewolf. You can just get One Night Ultimate Werewolf. You don't need both. You can just get One Night Ultimate Daybreak, I believe. You don't need both. I have both in this box, and you will want to pick up both eventually. But even then, it's only like, again, depending on where you go, you can get this game for like $8 for the base game, and that will deliver hours of hilarious fun with your group, assuming you are okay lying to each other, because lying to each other is important in this game. This is the first party game on this list, and yes, I said first party game because we have one more, it looks like. But this is a game that it's not your classic party game, but rather it's a game that you want a minimum of 3, but really I recommend 4 and up, and ideally even 5 and up players. But it's a game that plays in 8 minutes per game, and that's set because there's a timer, so you can adjust the timer. But this is not a game where it's like, well, maybe 8 minutes, but it might be 15 or 20. No, there's a timer in this game, which means you set the timer and you start the clock, and then you start throwing shade at each other. You start accusing each other of what happened during the night, because in the beginning of this game, you have a night phase where things happen, and the app will moderate. You don't need to moderate the game yourself. This is not regular Werewolf. The app will moderate it for you, but things will happen during the night. Perhaps 2 players switch roles. Perhaps the werewolf is no longer the werewolf. Perhaps someone else swapped a card with the card in the center. And you together, as a team, need to figure out what happened. I lie. Not as a team, because you are out for yourself in this game. Perhaps as things develop, perhaps as you are the player who figured out what happened during the night, maybe you'll realize who is on what team, and maybe you'll be a part of a team. But in this game, one of the reasons I like it so much compared to Resistance, first of all, price point wise, it's better. Secondly, though, I like it so much compared to Resistance because this is a game where even as a new player, so even as a good player, you are incentivized to lie. Which means there is no such stress in this game of, oh no, I was caught in a lie, they'll realize I'm bad. Because good or bad, you want to lie because it draws out information. And so that takes the stress away from new players. It takes away the stress from people who aren't good at that style of game yet. Because it doesn't matter if you get caught in a lie, because you can play it off of, yeah, I was lying. But I wanted to find out what you are, and now you just told me, so thanks for that. It is a game that is accessible, it plays in a quick time, and it handles a decent variety of player counts, and all for only 8 to 10 bucks. Again, I'm looking at used prices here as well, but it is a good game, and this might be the game in my collection I've gotten most value from, honestly, we'll see. Next up from there, we have Codenames Duet. And you say this is not Codenames Duet, you're right, because I lent out Codenames Duet before doing this video, and I don't have that on my shelf right now. So right now, I only have Codenames. I need to get my Codenames Duet back, but I still want to do this video, and so I'll just pretend this box is green instead. But Codenames Duet is a game I've talked about before as well. I've talked about it in my couples video, I've talked about it in other videos. It is a great, great, great game. And it's cheap too. And the reason I picked Codenames Duet over Codenames is because Codenames Duet can be played both as a 2-player game, but also as a team-based experience. You can do that as well. Versus Codenames, you're kind of locked in as a team-based experience. You can't play it with 2. So I think if you were picking a single game for your collection, I'd recommend Codenames Duet over Codenames. But in Codenames, you're laying out the cards and giving each other clues. I mean, honestly, I feel the need to talk about less this one because I think more people know it. But in the game, you're laying out cards, and you lay out a tableau of cards, and then from there, you have to give a clue to your teammate, or you might have opposing teams, we'll figure that out. But you sit there and you say, I don't know, red 4. And that means you ideally are looking at 4 cards on the table that are red or have something to do with red, because the first 3 will be easy. The person will pick apple, and great, apple's on the table. The next person will pick fire, well, not the same person will pick fire truck. Great, fire trucks are red. But from there it gets more complicated because you're looking around at the rest of the cards and you don't know what's red. Is it a dragon? A dragon could be red. They breathe fire. Is that what you meant? I don't really know. Who really knows what thought process you were going through? And the game becomes fun because you start going through these mental gymnastics and you start speaking out loud saying what you think the person was thinking and how they were thinking that, and people are trying to keep a straight face as they, what in the world are you thinking, and how did you get from red to, I don't know, banana? How did you confuse? Maybe because the apple is red and you're just thinking fruit? Who really knows? The thought process is fun to follow. And it's great. It really, really is. I cannot recommend this game enough. Codenames or Codenames Duet, but like I said, if picking one, I'd recommend Codenames Duet. And that kind of does it with the small boxes. From there, and again, there's 11 games on this list. I want to remind you of that. 11 games, 12 if you count, Sprawlopolis and Circle the Wagons. But that kind of does it with the small boxes, and we'll push these off to the back over here. Because next up on this list we have Santorini, which Santorini was they just announced a reprint for this game, so, well, I mean, I recommend this one because this one will A, be cheaper than it already is once the reprint comes out, and B, this is already pretty cheaply available. This is not a super expensive game. You can get this at 20 bucks or under, again, factoring in used prices. But Santorini is an excellent 2-player experience, and it delivers one of the best 2-player experiences for the price point that it offers that I couldn't not include on this list. And yes, you can play it with 3 and 4 as well. I remember the last time I talked about this, I had a bunch of people pointing that out. Of course you can. I think it thrives as a 2-player experience, but we all have our own opinions there. But again, could be played 3 and 4 as well. Santorini is a 2-player abstract. It is a game where you are building up this little island of buildings, and you're trying to figure out how do you sit there and block your opponent. Each player gets an ability, either a hero or a god, that will define how they break the rules of the game. And the rules are pretty simple. The rules ultimately come down to moving and building, moving and building. And as you slowly build, you're trying to move up different levels so you can get your guy or one of your guys to the top and hopefully win the game. But you can block each other because you can cap each opponent's tower. And you have abilities that will change the game state. Maybe I can move 2 spaces. Maybe you can build 2 tiles at a time. Maybe I win if I go from the 3rd level directly down to the 2nd level directly down to the bottom. There are different rules that change up the game state, and those rules make it so that I have played this game a decent amount and I haven't come close to experiencing the vast variety of ways that the game is adjusted with these minor, tiny rules that just change the whole way you perceive the game. And I like it. I like it a lot, and I think for 20 bucks or so, this is a game you can't go wrong in. It is cheaply available, it is easy to get, and it's a game that delivers an amazing experience. This is an amazing game by Roxley and Spin Master that I recommend it. It's a great game when you're taking into account the value for your dollar. And next up from there we have Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders, which is chock full of good stuff over here, chock full of all the expansions, not all the expansions, most of the expansions. I actually have one of the expansions you can see in the background over there is Armada, is in the background, not yet boxed in here. But everything else is in here. We have cities, we have Babel, we have leaders, and all the anniversary expansion packs are in here. And this game is great, and it is on this list because it is, again, I'm focusing on the secondary market for this one. This is cheaply available, and it's about to be even cheaper because they just announced the reprint. They just announced that they are redoing the entire line with new art. And so for every die-hard fan out there who's like, I don't feel the need to upgrade, I don't even play this game enough, or I like this so much better than the new artwork is terrible and it's going to corrupt the series. But for every one of those, there's going to be other people selling their copies now, trading their copies now, trying to get rid of their games while the markets can still take it in anticipation of reacquiring the new art. And I certainly will be one of those gamers because I like this game and I like the new art. And if money is anything to go by, which it is, there will be new expansions with that new art, and anyone with the old edition will be locked out. But for you watching this video who's trying to see if it's even a game for you and you want something cheaply available, well, this is a good choice. Seven Wonders is an excellent choice that you can get for 25-30 bucks, but again, look at what it delivers for that price. Look at what it gives you. It gives you a game that can be played between 2 and 7 players, but I don't recommend 2 as much. Seven Wonders Duel is better for that, but it's certainly doable. I have done it. And between 2 and 7, let's call it 3 to 7 players. It plays in half an hour. It is accessible and easy to teach. You can play this with new players. You can play it with people who've been playing games for, well, I've been playing games for 8 years and I'm still playing this, so I mean, you can play it with a decent variety of skill levels. It is incredibly easy to get this game to the table. It's a game that has stayed in my collection. For me, this is my Catan. This is not Catan I didn't keep, I got rid of it in the end, but this is my Catan. This is a game that doesn't compare to some of the experiences I have nowadays. But every time I play it, I love it. Every time I play it, I enjoy it. Every time I draft those cards, and this game has drafting, which is a mechanic I wanted to include. But every time I draft those cards, I'm building out my city. I am picking which direction I'm going to go this game. Am I going to go with science? Am I going to go with the victory point cards? Am I going to conquer you through military might? There are a variety of different tactics you can try to choose, but it's not about any single tactic. Rather, it's about the different ways you combine your tactics while keeping an eye on your neighbors to your left and your right, and with cities sometimes even further around the table. Leaders is an almost essential expansion that really mixes up the experience, and I highly recommend it. But start with the base game, because maybe this just isn't the game for you to begin with. But if you want, give this game a shot. It has a decent price point, easily available, and that will take us to Dominion. Dominion, oh my gosh, this guy is a beast, because you see, inside this box, I basically have every single expansion, not every single expansion, I don't have the last 3 or so, but all of these cards are from all of the various expansions in Dominion. And no, when I talk about the price point of this game, I do not mean those expansions. That is definitely not factored into this discussion, but this box is heavy. I'm gonna put it down now lest I break something. But Dominion is a game that is, again, cheaply available, especially on the second-hand market, because it's been out for so long. This is a game that changes hands a lot, because it's a game that offers a lot of value to those who get it. It is a good game. It's a great game. But it's also a game that, like Seven Wonders, people tend to move on from a lot. I certainly haven't. I still consider this the deck builder. This is, to me, when I think of deck building, Dominion still is the deck builder out there, despite having different experiences that involve deck building that I thoroughly enjoy, such as Dale of Merchants and many others. but Dominion to me is the grandfather of deck building games and is an excellent, enjoyable experience that is fairly cheaply available and will give you a wide variety of game time, of game options for that 20, 30 bucks that you pay to get a used copy or whatever. Because you mix up the decks every time, you pick out which 10 cards are going to be part of your board, defining the strategies available to yourself and to the other players. It is a game that plays well with 2, 3, and 4 players, a little bit not as well at 4 because the downtime added is not necessarily worth it. It thrives on 2 and 3, good with 4, plays in usually, I'd say around 45 minutes to an hour, but every game can be drastically different. And I know for myself, I'm always building an amazing engine of deck building experience that is ultimately all lost when my wife just wins because she bought more gold than I did. She likes to win, I like to build an amazing deck, but in the end we both have fun. She likes to talk about the time she won me like 70-2 or something like that. I don't really remember. It was not fun, but she did win. From there we have the first game I'm really gonna have to fight you on. And this is why, and I acknowledge that I will lose this fight, because this is Everdell, and Everdell is not by any means a cheap game. Everdell is a game, comes with a nice little box sleeve. I actually prefer the box art. I don't know why I keep the box sleeve, maybe just because I don't want to throw things out, I don't know. I mean, I throw out expansion boxes, but this is a game that I'm going to explain why I added this to this list, and then I'll acknowledge that I will probably lose that battle, which is why I included 11 games on this top 10 list, because Everdell is my 11th game. It's the one I am throwing on this list because I want it on this list. Even though it's not really that cheap, and it's not that expensive, but it's a game that it holds the value well on the secondary market. This is a game that is not available cheaper just because it's, you know, used. People want this game, people like this game, and it's still new enough that it hasn't yet rotated around enough that you can't really get it cheaply. The cheapest you can get this game, if you're lucky, is 40 bucks, and that's on the cheap side. Usually you're talking about 50, 60 bucks, and that's certainly not cheap. So why am I including on this list? So first of all, it fills out a lot of missing spots on this list, and I'll acknowledge that's not a good enough reason. It fills out tableau building, it fills out worker placement, maybe that's all it fills out, I don't remember. I thought I had more, but even so, it gives us more stuff on this list of 10 games that weren't there before. But more importantly, the reason I wanted to include it is because it is a game that is simultaneously easy to teach, easy to learn, easy to play, easy to get to the table. It has a decent amount of strategic depth that is truly engaging. The artwork will pull you in. It will drag you into this world, this game, like no other game on this list will. Santorini does have a table presence. Dale of Merchants does have beautiful art, but none of those compare to Everdell, which combines both a table presence, beautiful art, incredible gameplay, all in one package. And that's a good value for your money, isn't it? That is a good, if you're talking about games that give you value for your money, this has to be one of them. But I acknowledge that at $40, $50, again, on the cheap end, that is a lot to ask for a game that is on a list about games that give you a good value. But I think it earns its spot, but I also acknowledge that it probably shouldn't. So that's why this is my 11th game. But nonetheless, Dale of Merchants is incredible. It gives you that accessibility. It pulls you in. It is strategically rewarding, and it has multiple mechanics. It has hand management, tableau building, worker placement. It has beautiful resources depending on which version you get, but even the basic version has beautiful resources. The deluxe version just has even more beautiful resources. It has a lot of punch all packed into this box. And I think it really should be an essential in everyone's collection. And that box sleeve is upside down, but now the box is upside down. So I'm gonna leave the box sleeve upside down, and all you OCD people out there can worry about that. And I'm one of them. I'm just focusing on the video right now. And lastly on this list, and this is one where I'm prepared to fight and win. So there's no 12th game. And that is Pandemic Legacy. Pandemic Legacy is a game that is also, I'm gonna lower this here because it's throwing off the lighting. Pandemic Legacy is a game that is also not cheap. It really isn't. This is a game that comes in at 50, 60 bucks, and you can't really get this used. I mean, you can get it used, but not used, because it's a legacy game. If the person actually played it, if they did anything more than take off the shrink, then now it's suddenly no longer a game that you can really experience the way it's meant to be experienced. So why is a $50, $60 game that's not cheaply available on this list, and why am I prepared to fight for this one the way I didn't for Everdell? Because it's a legacy game. Because this is a game that it will give you that value for your money if you like it, and most people do like it. Because this is a game that, unlike many other games, Santorini might be great, but if you buy this game and play it 3 times, is it really value for your money? If you buy any of the games on this list and you play it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, how much value have you gotten out of? Most games need you to play them a decent amount of time, unless they're super cheap, for you to get that value back. But not Pandemic Legacy. Well, I mean, yes, Pandemic Legacy, but yes, you'll play it. Pandemic Legacy is a game that, because it's a legacy game, it's going to give you between 12 and 24 experiences and you'll play them all. And when I say 12 and 24, if you do 12, let me know down in the comments down below if you've ever played this game in 12 games, because 12 means you've never lost, and that's hard to do. I imagine this game for most people is between 16 and 24 experiences, and usually probably closer to 20 or so. Because this game is a game that it's hard to win in Pandemic Legacy, and you have to fight again and again, and you will win. But you'll have to fight for it, you have to earn it. And because it's a legacy game, you are likely to actually play all of those games in a fairly narrow window. This $50, $60 game will give 2 to 4 players 15 to 20 to 24 games, all in a 6-month window if you do it right. And if that isn't value for your dollar, I don't know what is. Sure, you can't really resell it or trade it on the way out, but you certainly can frame it. You can certainly build a shadow box out of it. This is a game that will give you that value because it will not sit on your shelf unplayed. A game you're trading is great, you'll get your money back. A game you sell, you'll get your money back to some extent, whatever it is. But a game that's sitting on your shelf and not seeing the table is not a game that's giving you value for your money. And I believe that for most people, not everyone mind you, but for most people, I believe Pandemic Legacy is a game that will give you that experience. By the way, this is Season 2. I recommend Season 1 more, but my wife recommends Season 2 more. So take that as you will. Take whatever you want out of that difference of opinion. But we both love both. And I've played Season 1 and 2 twice now. That should tell you how much I've loved it. I like this game. I like the experience it delivers. And I like the fact that you will actually play all those games because it's a legacy game, because you're ripping things up, because you're destroying it, and because you feel like you're finishing a TV show. You are going through it game by game with the goal of finishing it. This isn't some random movie you'll pull off your whatever and try to watch. This is a TV show that you need to finish because you want to see how it ends. And that's value for your dollar. I hope you enjoy this list. This is a decent assortment of games here. We have cheap games, we have not so cheap games, but like I said, the goal here was to give you games that give you a good return on your dollar, that you'll play them a lot, you'll give you different experiences, different play counts, different time frames. I wanted to deliver a good package of 10 or 11 games to start your collection. And Everdell certainly is the last one I'd pick up if money is your focus. I do believe that, but it's still a game that I believe is worth picking up. I hope you enjoyed this list. As usual, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and these are my picks for the top 10 games that are just excellent choices if you're trying to start a collection on a budget. And perhaps some other time I'll do another list on 10 games that I think are essential if you're not focusing on a budget. Until next time, I am Alex. You can subscribe down below, ring the bell for notifications, check out the channel, check out other videos. If you're new here, welcome. Please join us. We're a fun crew, we talk a lot, we're in the comments, I'm pretty active there. And that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.